Hello, everybody. My name is Brad Conrad. I'm the director of the Society of Physics Students and Sigma Pi Sigma, the Physics and Astronomy Honor Society. Kiril?
Oh, yes. Hi, Brad. And I'm Kiril Streletzky. I'm the president of Society of Physics Students and a professor at Cleveland State University.
Well, I just want to thank you all for coming today. I know it's late in the year, but it's never too early to start thinking about REUs and your summer plans and how different opportunities might impact you, both your career, and you can have a lot of fun at the same time. So what we've done is we've prepared kind of a brief talk. It won't take too long, just sort of the high points about what REUs are, what the different kinds of REUs are in summer experiences, what they look like, why they're important, why you might want to apply for one, how you might want to apply for one, and then just some details around that, which should be helpful. And then we'll take questions at the end. So if you're here with us live, please feel free at any point to just jot in the Q&A feature, go ahead and just write down your question, and then we'll get to it at the end, and Kiril and I will do our best to answer that. And with your permission, Kiril, I'll go ahead and start sharing slides and we'll get started.
Please, Brad.
Okay. So we'll share screen. Okay. So welcome to How to REUs and a lot of other summer internship possibilities. And by the way, this is brought to you by the Society of Physics Students, Sigma Pi Sigma, the Physics and Astronomy Honor Society, and AIP, the American Institute of Physics. And so just a little bit of background, Kiril and I are both part of the Society of Physics Students. So if you don't know what we are, SPS is basically the undergraduate organization at many colleges and universities across the globe that aim to support everybody that has an interest in physics or astronomy. So whatever your student club is, if it's a part of an undergraduate physics and astronomy department, SPS is here to support you. And Sigma Pi Sigma is the older of the two organizations. It is the Physics and Astronomy Honor Society, and it exists to support and to honor people who excel in physics and astronomy and to give us something to strive for. So if you're interested in finding out more about either of these two resources, feel free to visit us at spsnational.org or sigmapisigma.org. And so what we're going to do is, hopefully with a couple of jokes in there, talk a little bit about REUs. And so we'll go over what those are. But in general, when we're talking about REUs, a lot of the things that we're discussing today refer to summer research experiences or working in a lab or a research environment over the summer. These experiences take lots of different forms, but in general, most of the advice we're giving specifically for REUs, which is a specific type of a thing that you apply for lots of summer interactions. And I actually did 3 summer REUs when I was an undergraduate, and it really helped me test drive some of the careers and different research areas that I was thinking about. Kiril, do you want to go ahead and kind of take over and tell us a little bit about what REUs are from your perspective?
Oh, yes. Thank you, Brad. So REU is a very great experience. And maybe before we even talk about this, just to give you an overall sense, why would anyone want to go through REU, research experience for undergraduates? Well, first of all, this is a wonderful opportunity for you to test your interest in research. So you might be thinking about research in physics, astronomy, or related fields, and you might not really know if research is for you. Well, REU experience is the paid experience where you can try it without any threat to your grade, right? And at the same time, be paid for it and actually see if this experience is for you. It might be that it's not, and it's perfectly fine. And it's important to figure this out early on. You don't want necessarily to go into graduate school, go through a couple of years of graduate school, and then realize that, no, you don't really want to sit in a lab, dark lab, like optics lab, every single day without sunlight and have those long hours and get no data then, right? So that's what you can figure out through the research experience for undergraduates. The REU program, the one that we mostly focusing on today, is research experience for undergraduates. This is a program funded by National Science Foundation. In fact, this is one of the oldest NSF research grants that has been running basically for 65 years. Next year will be 65th year, with the exception of this small window between 82 and 87. It was on pause, was canceled, and then starting from 87, it was finally renamed the way it is named right now, Research Experience for Undergraduates. So this is a very long-running program And as Brad mentioned, he went through few, and from the faculty perspective, working through several faculty searches, it's actually pretty common nowadays to see people applying for faculty positions who went through at least one REU experience somewhere, and this is a very big deal. So there are sites across United States. There are sites in many different fields, and we'll talk about this. Obviously, we would like to focus on physics and astronomy, and there are 101 sites available this year, or we're talking about 2023, some of 23. But there are also various sites that I would like to spend some time on, and we'll deal with this at the end of this presentation, which are not necessarily framed under physics or astronomical sciences, but which really welcome physics majors. So material research is one of them, and there are quite a few great examples in material research where physicists, physics majors are really sought after, or atmospheric and geospace sciences, ocean sciences or earth sciences. Those are really booming fields nowadays, and they're very cool research experience for undergraduate programs throughout the country on those. Quite a few engineering programs. Again, various types of engineering that can be really far removed from physics and astronomy, but some of those, for example, a program that we used to run at Cleveland State, well, it was actually under the, well, in fact, it was under material research, but our program was based in the physics department. And this is very common that you have well-defined physics problems being solved, being addressed at those REU programs. But formally, the program is being listed under material science or engineering. Another couple that I would like to mention, computer information science and engineering. So now quite a bit of buzz is there about the quantum computing. And so I just finished a letter of recommendation for a student who is applying for a quantum computing REU program. So, and this actually doesn't fall under the physics category. It's under this computer information science and engineering category. Mathematical science is obviously chemistry, biological science. So there are lots of those different fields. All of them are combined together under this NSF program, and I would advise you to look into a variety of those depending on your interests. Generally speaking, those are, as I said, spread out through country. They take about 10 students. Some of those actually take many more students, and I'll go through this later as well. This is real authentic research experience, usually and most of the times guided by faculty or the faculty group. Includes a significant amount of professional development and networking opportunities. So that's something that you really want to consider. Finally, there is a point there on at the bottom of the slide, which is actually a very important point. Many REUs, not all of REUs, but many REUs look for students with no research experience. This is very important to understand. You don't have to have research experience in order to get into one of those programs. Quite the contrary, many programs look for students without research experience. Okay, Brad, can we go to the next slide, please?
Yeah, and just to mirror what Kiril was saying, these programs, although they may not, you may be hesitant to apply to one that's listed as material science as a physics student or one that's astronomy as a physics student. These programs look for physics students because they really appreciate the skill set that physics students bring. So don't think, oh, my major is physics, I can't go do that chemistry thing or that engineering thing. You 100% can. Kiril?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And we'll come back to this point later when we'll talk about specific examples of REU programs. This is absolutely right. And physics students and astronomy students are sought after everywhere. And that's really the fact. Okay, so in terms of important facts and how does the REU work logistically? You majority of times have to look for a REU program outside of your institution, right? So we run a REU program and we were pressed very hard to get students outside of our university. That's one point. The second point, that REU pays good salaries, so you get weekly check. This year, it's about $600. Sometimes it's somewhat higher. Sometimes it's a little bit lower, but $600 a week. And this is a 10-week program, so you can do the math. At the same time, housing is typically provided. Not always, but majority all REUs that I know right now provide housing. Typically, they also include travel funds to and from the site, especially if you're traveling across the state lines. Again, as we said, it's about 10 weeks, and the dates would depend on particular program, but it starts at the end of May or early June. There are 101 physics and astronomy REU sites in 2023. As you look through those sites, you need to make sure that the site has been renewed for this coming year. But there are also hundreds, as you saw, REU sites outside of physics and astronomy, which take physics majors. And that's the important topic, important emphasis there that we would like to make here. In addition to REU programs, there are a variety of national labs that have their own summer programs, as well as universities. So we'll briefly talk about this a little bit too. And the final point, well, there are also companies that have their own programs. And I think that's what Brad wanted to talk about.
And one point I'd like to make is, so I said earlier that I had done 3 REU programs. It turns out that none of the 3 REU programs I did were physics. The first one was polymers or ceramics. The second one was renewable energy in a sustainability program. And the third was in polymers. So I actually was a physics student, never in a physics REU program, but I still got physics degrees. And that training really helped me quite a lot. And one of the things I'd really want to point out for you is that there's lots of opportunities. There's lots of companies that hire summer. They have very similar kinds of programs, REU type programs, where they pay you money to come work with them. And you might be curious what kind of programs you can access. So one of the amazing resources put together by the American Institute of Physics, or AIP, is every year they ask graduating undergraduates where they went to work. And many of those undergraduates did REUs or summer experiences before they got jobs there. So if you want to find a big, great list of places both you can get jobs at and places you can intern at, if you use the QR code at the top or you type the link in at the bottom, it'll come up and there's a map and a list of all of the states in the United States, and you can click on the state. And what it'll do is it'll pick all of the states, or it'll pick for that state all of the different companies that have hired undergraduate physics majors from the past couple of years. And so you might see companies on here that are surprising to you. Some of them are not surprising. Like I know IBM takes lots of different physicists and astronomers every year. Lockheed Martin takes lots of physicists and astronomers. So does Facebook, now called Meta. Ball Aerospace takes a couple, but so do finance companies and lots of different other places. So if you only take one thing away from this talk, there's a great resource here for you to find jobs and summer REUs. Kiril?
All right, so how does the application process work? Well, you typically need to meet this deadline, and we'll talk about those deadlines in the next few slides. The deadlines typically start sometime in January. So I think in examples that I will show you later, there is one particular place which has a deadline on January 6th or so. But typical deadline would be about maybe 1st of February or middle of February, sometimes later, but that's what you should keep in mind. And so what you need to do during application, you need to provide information about yourself. It depends on the particular site, but some of the divisions of NSF deal with a centralized system of application where this information is well systemized. Others don't, and then you just go through a particular university's website. But typically, this would be some general information about you, the courses, some academic preparation, so which courses you took. Very often you asked to emphasize your lab and coding skills, laboratory skills, maybe chemistry lab, physics labs, coding skills, also very important, maybe Python course or C++, as well as your writing experience. You often, every single time, I have to say, not often, but always you asked to write an essay. I will talk about this in a little bit. You need to provide a resume, which basically, you know what a resume is, but you should really try to highlight the important things that we talk about in your resume. You should really try to design your resume specifically for the summer position like this. And you also asked to provide letters of recommendation. And letters of recommendation should come, expected to come from people who know you, typically faculty. Finally, the statement of preferred research project in the program that you're applying to. So this is a very good idea to explore the programs that you think would be of interest to you. How do you decide on this? Well, you should decide on the relative field of interest within physics, outside physics, right? And you should explore those sites, and you should find all of those sites would list specific projects that the site will be running this upcoming summer. You should look through this list, right, and see which of the projects would be something that you would like to do. And you definitely need to describe those projects and explain why you want to do specific type of research in a specific REU.
Yeah, and to build off of that, the key message here is that this is not like it takes time to apply to these, but it doesn't take that much time. But one of the most important things is your essay, the thing that you're writing, you definitely want to tailor it to the REU site. They probably have a prompt. They probably have a very specific, tell us about blank, or tell us why you want to work here, or tell us about why you want to be a scientist or a physicist. Definitely make sure that you're answering the questions. And that leads into, I think, the most important thing about the application is that these applications it's not one piece here that's going to make it or one piece there, but they're looking for people holistically. The best way to sort of explain it, because I've reviewed lots of these applications before, is that they're trying to find a great match. What they want to do is they want to find a student that's going to work really well on not just a project, but also with an advisor. And the more you show them who you are, the more you show them what you're interested in, what you're passionate about, why do you get up out of the morning? Why do you do stuff? Why do you want to be a physicist or astronomer? Why is it you want to be at Cleveland State University working with Kiril? Whatever it is, the more that comes through in the materials that you have, the better they're going to connect with you, the better they're going to understand you, and the better they're going to be able to place you with a place that you're going to thrive. Because it's very rare that they offer you a position if they don't think you're going to do well. Would you agree with that, Kiril?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And I think Brad described it very nicely. This holistic approach basically means that they don't just look at your grades or the specific list of classes. No, not at all. And I shouldn't say we, right? So whenever I review applications, the same thing, I'm trying to see how the student would fit here, how a particular applicant would fit at Cleveland State, and is there real shown interest in the projects that we offer? Is their details describing the students' overall approach to life, not just really academic part of it, but things which are important for us, well, at least for the students who work in my lab, experimental lab, well, attention to detail. I mean, do students have, do they know how to work with their hands a little bit? Is it clear from their application, right? Do they talk about, how to deal with some difficult situations? For example, we all every so often come across some challenges, and how do we handle those challenges? That's an important part of life as well. And if you somehow can describe an event or two in your academic career where you overcame, I don't know, low grades in the beginning of the class, or I don't know, the not very good lab partner in your introductory physics labs or something like that, this would be very useful. Because again, this is an approach to look at the overall package, look at the various types of characteristics that people don't necessarily often think to highlight, such as, well, how mature you are, right? Do you show signs of perseverance while working, again, an experiment? Well, you might need to do experiment in my lab, I don't know, 15 times. Well, can I read from your application that you would be up for it, or you will just say, oh, no, it doesn't work, I walk out of this, right? I don't want a student like this, right? So things like that. So there are many of those things which are associated with your dependability, your grit, your ability to solve problems, and just not necessarily your GPA and not necessarily your list of classes, which also can be helpful, of course.
Yeah. And so you just want to, I guess, to kind of summarize that, you want to be yourself. And I suggest you do not say vague things, but say specific things. Don't tell them who you are, show them who you are through example. So always show, don't tell. And that's very hard to do. So you don't want to start off with, I love science, because that's telling them that you love science. You want to show them that you love science, show them that you love physics. And this kind of leads into the nuts and bolts of your application. So one of the things that I always do is I like to know, how am I being measured? So when there's an REU, these applications come in, and often there's a rubric. There's a thing that people are filling out when they look at your letter, and the letter's written about you, and all of these different pieces, and as it comes together. And so it's important to know what they're looking for. And on some rubrics, again, I can't speak for all of them. I can only speak for the ones that I've been involved with in the past. There's literally, they're asking me to rate people, to judge people on, are they mature? Do they show leadership skills? Do they have the ability to stick with it when the experiment doesn't work the first time? Do you give up or do you keep going with it? Do you show up on time? Do you show up early? Are you dependable? Can you communicate the things that you've learned? Can you communicate the things that are causing you problems? And also, what skills do you have that you're coming into this REU with? And as Kiril said, they don't expect you to be an expert, because if you're an expert, they would just be hiring you, right? This is it's a learning experience they want to teach you, so that you don't need to know the coding skills. You don't need to know all these very specific skills, but they do want to know what you do know, because the more that they know your skills, the more they can peg you in that perfect REU experience. And so you might be curious what's really important. So for me, coming in the gate, when they look at your application, you're coming from a school, you have a major, you have a GPA, and you can list your skills and interests. And that's sort of the baseline, right? That's who you are, sort of in a very neat little snapshot. But you can't really control that. Like, you're coming from a school, you have a major, those are already fixed. The thing that you can control when you apply and before you apply is your letter. And every place that I know of reads every letter from every applicant that applies. So that means it doesn't matter where you're coming from, what your GPA is, what your background is, everybody's going to read your letter. And so it's very important that your letter is personal and is from the heart and explains and shows who you are. So your letter, I think, is the number one most important thing for an application. And then the letters of recommendation, two to four of them, they're important, but they help fill in the gaps from your letter. And your research experiences, your leadership experiences, if you've been involved and you've led things outside the classroom, that's important, but that's sort of a third level importance, right? It sort of helps fill in who you are and what you do outside the classroom. And classes that you took are important, and papers you've published and conferences you've gone to, all of that's important, but not as important as that letter, and not as important as the letters of recommendation. Kiril?
Yes, I totally agree with Brad. I would only add to the letters of recommendation, try to diversify a little bit if you can, right? So it's the easiest for us or for you guys to get letters of recommendation from the professors from your classes. And it is important to have a letter from a class, which is a good letter, shows your character, but maybe instead of having 3 letters from professors from different classes, maybe you can have a letter from your SPS advisor. Or if you've done some volunteering and the department chair can write your letter. Or if you've done some research, you have some research experience, maybe your research advisor can, or just academic advisor overall can give you some sort of recommendation and show a side of you which wasn't obvious to faculty in the classroom. So again, back to the point that we were trying to make before, your letter, your own letter, your own application, right, should show you from all those different dimensions. And the recommendation letter should highlight this very nicely. So again, don't try just to go for the easiest letters from professors. Try to diversify if you can.
And in a little bit, we have a couple articles about some things that are related to this, which are in this really nice issue that Grad School Shopper partners with SPS to produce the Grad School Shopper magazine. If you use this QR code, it'll take you to that magazine, and there's about 40 articles. And I think there's one, if not 2 articles specifically on some of these topics. So you can read more about that later. Kiril?
All right. So, and again, we're basically going over the same ideas here, but maybe in some greater detail. So important things which your essay should mention. Well, you should really talk about your interest in grad school. It's fine if you're not sure, but you should really just show your thinking about this, right? Which way you are leaning towards. And again, if you're not interested in grad school, it's not a problem. I can tell you from the perspective of someone who ran a REU for a few years, well, if we had a student who wasn't interested in grad school, came to REU and then became interested in grad school, we say, yeah, this is a huge achievement for us. right? So that's, again, it does not stop them from taking you if you notice in grad school, but you want to put your reasoning in there, okay? Again, you need to mention your interest in your career, so what you're thinking to do in the future, and you really should spend significant amount of time talking about the specific program and why this specific program that you're applying for is good for you. Why is it a good fit? Again, programs are looking for students who would fit nicely into their requirements, whether this is a theoretical research, experimental research, computational research. Again, this is an important problem where you're trying to make sure that the fit is good. And so this is your responsibility in your essay to describe why this program is a good fit for you. And the opposite too, right? Why you are a good fit for the program and why this program is a good fit for you. So they should work both ways. So what do you expect to get from the program, right? And what can you contribute to the program, right? So it goes both ways. As Brad said already a few times, you be as expressive as you can, specific and heartfelt. It shouldn't be formal sentences, because the idea is to try to show who you are, right? To really stand out from the rest of applications. And so try to be expressive, specific and heartfelt. You should mention the people that you would want to work with. In many programs, for example, in our program, this was a requirement. Students had to specifically mention what their preferences in terms of work. So this is oftentimes is the case. Again, be as specific as you can in everything that you write, and have someone to review your letter. This is a seemingly obvious point there, right? I wouldn't even wonder why do we put it in there, but you can't believe how often people just completely ignore this point. You really, and this is true not only about students, but about faculty too. This is in your interest. Make sure you show this letter to several other people who won't just formally look at this, oh yeah, you're fine, you're great, you're the best. No. Preferably to someone who can be critical, right? Who can provide a critical view of what you wrote there. And this is in your interest, right? Someone who actually cares about you should review this letter, okay? And again, as Brad says so many times, you should show and not just tell in your application.
And that's really hard to do. So find examples of the traits that you want to make sure come across in your letter. And I can't state enough, pick somebody that you think is going to tear your letter to shreds and mark it all up red, because that's the person you want. The person who's going to go through it critically, find all your commas, make sure that there's a flow, ask you to reorganize the letter. That's the person you want to be looking through your letter. And then we'll go in just real quickly. I think we already talked mostly about letters of recommendation. The one point I wanted to make across is that you definitely want your letters that can talk about a variety of things. And you want people that can talk to you about it academically, and as well as people that can talk to you, talk about you outside the classroom. Would you agree, Kiril?
Yes, completely.
And some of the things that you might want to think about are: do you volunteer? Is there any group that you do a lot of volunteering work for, or you support? Can they write you a letter? Or are you a leader? It doesn't have to be in the physics club or the astronomy club, any kind of club that shows that you're a leader and that you do things outside the classroom. Do you have a job on campus or outside of campus? You can have the place that you work for write you a letter. And an easy one is if you're active in the astronomy club or the women in physics club or a sports club or whatever club, that's a great place to go. And if there is anybody that knows you in both the academic and the research, that's a really nice combination, because it kind of checks two boxes off with the same person. Kiril?
Yes, I completely agree with all that Brad said here. Again, the clubs would be a big advantage. That's always something that we look for. Employment record and some description of it, and recommendation letter, especially if it's employment on campus. This would be really good. And of course, volunteering and leadership, those are obvious things which students should not forget in their when they think about letters of recommendation.
And when you're doing this might seem like an awful lot. Like there's just a whole bunch of things to keep in your head, and you have to write this perfect letter, and it seems really stressful. So we made something to help you, and it's designed that you can work with a faculty member or not. It's designed either way, but it's called the SPS Career Toolbox. It's free. It's like an 80-page like booklet that you can work through. You can download it, do it for free. It was actually made through an NSF grant specifically for this purpose. But what it'll do is it'll take you everything from having done no forethought to your resume or your letter or anything like that. It'll help you take a look at what you've done, the classes you've taken, how to extract out the skills and the things you've learned from those, how to write that into a cover letter, into a resume, into a CV. Even if it gets to the point, if there's an interview for your REU, how you could go about that interview, and then how you should think about pulling it all together and making it look really pretty. So it's free to download. Go at it. It's really helpful. And we've had this for several years now, and lots of students say it totally changed the way they both apply to things and their success rate for getting into things. So check it out. Kiril, I know that in the past couple of years, COVID really changed things for a lot of different people for a lot of different reasons. How do you think COVID changed the REU landscape?
So what happened after COVID or during COVID? Well, during COVID itself, many of the programs just paused for a year. But the following year, many programs went to the online version, which was somewhat unfortunate, because a big part of our REU program, well, yes, you get your research experience, which you can get for many types of projects through the online interaction. But the very important part of our REU is building this community with students and faculty and the other students at the location of our REU. And while you can do this somewhat through the Zoom meetings, you still cannot substitute the in-person interactions. So yes, it was very hard. I think it's not the question anymore, right? So all are used now in person. So yep. It should be fine.
And what that did is, so all of the people that are applying now have had a very different experience over the past 4 years than traditionally has been the case. So when you go to apply, people are actually people who are running REUs are looking at things a little bit differently than they have in the past. And we've talked to some people who are accepting graduate programs and some people who are accepting REU applications. We asked them how things are different. And the response that we've gotten is that your letter matters even more, because we've each had personal journeys over the past 4 years, and we've had different experiences. Some people at some universities, they were able to have research experiences, some students weren't. But we want to make sure that we're getting a really great mix of people. So we want a really diverse group of people, which means they need to know more about you. So in your letter, make it more personal. That narrative is really more important. So like the story of how you got to where you are and where you want to go. And one other thing that people have found to be the case is they look a little bit more for, if you were offered the REU, would you accept it? That's one thing that they seem to be looking at more. And you may have more coding experience because you could do those things virtually. That's great to put in there, even if it's just a little project. Definitely put that in your resume and in your letter, and name drop who you'd want to work with. And if there's any achievements that would be appropriate, make sure you put those in. And again, there's articles in the Guide to Grad School by Grad School Shopper. Make sure you check that out. There's articles, there's several specifically on how you write these letters, and in the SPS Observer. If you might be curious of, I don't even know if I want to apply to that because it may not be what I want. We actually have an article in the most recent fall 2022 SPS Observer about somebody who got into an REU and it wasn't what they expected and how it ended up changing their life, and they had a really good experience. So I think it might be good to kind of go into some specifics about different programs and the website. What do you think, Kiril?
Yes, right. So on this slide, first of all, the QR code there will take you to the NSF website with a list of REUs, and I'd like to go there in a second. So this particular slide talks about some examples in which come under the physics and astronomical sciences category of of NSF classification. Those examples are just based on knowing particularly our students that I know quite well who went through those REU programs, or some faculty who work through those REU. So those are somewhat personal examples, and I thought that this would be a nice illustration. So if I can share the screen.
Sure.
All right. So yes, so if you click on the top thing, you're going to get into the REU site. REU site for the National Science Foundation site, and I believe the top we basically should just go to, we just get to the REU sites. And this REU site, this particular one that we're dealing here with, looks, this particular variation of it looks at the physics sites. And that's what I would like to talk a little bit. So you can actually go through those different research areas. So if I click here, you can see there are all of those different research areas, and we'll look at some of those. Let's start with physics. So if you pick the physics side, you're going to get the list, and this list has 64 active sites, right? And they are there's some site information here, so you can see location, the contact information, some additional information. You can click on this; it will give you the more detailed description of what exactly they do. Some of those sites are co-funded, like this one is co-funded by Material Research. And then you also have those links to the particular REU site. So in this case, this is Alabama A&M University. If you check it out, you actually find out that the REU program accepts not 10 students, but 24 students this coming summers of 23. Okay, I just discovered by looking at this, right? You can also sort this by the location. So right now it goes from W, right? So we start with Wisconsin, Washington. You can see there are, in the state of Washington, there are 3 REU programs associated with physics. You can go in opposite direction, and that's, I guess, where we were. We started with Alabama, Arizona. Right, and so this is a really, they try to keep this site up to date. So if you click on those, you most of the times end up in the location of a particular program. Now, if you, a few programs that I wanted to share with you, and they are listed on the slide here. So the first one that I want to talk about, this is a research experience for undergraduates at the Brigham Young University. Right, this is the Department of Physics and Astronomy there, and they have a variety of physics problems there. You can see it's very general. They talk about optics, computer modeling, plasma, solid state, thin film science, acoustics theory, and astronomy. However, the reason I'm really opening this particular site, well, first of all, one of students who went through my REU went to this place, and she sent to me those absolutely amazing pictures, because in any REU program, you have students and you have the entire REU cohort going for these group activities. Well, look what they do here. They go to the Capitol Reef National Park. Or if, you know, look at this wonderful picture of Capitol Reef National Park. They do hikes together. That's what we did too. But, you know, in Cleveland, yeah, Cuyahoga National Park doesn't compare to what you see here. If I go a little bit down, I think like maybe 1 or 2 pictures down, you actually can get a really recognizable Arches National Park picture. Again, this is the REU cohort one there, I believe, 2 years ago. So that's another reason why you want to look into REU, because in addition to getting this wonderful experience, you get to meet people that will become hopefully friends for the rest of your life, but you also get to see places that possibly you've never been to. So that's one. Another one, this is on this side shown, is the CAC Northeast Astronomy Consortium. This is an amazing astronomical REU program. The consortium brings together 8 different liberal arts schools. And this is a wonderful program that has been running for a long time, and it provides wonderful opportunities for the different types of astronomy research. Let's see, what else do I have here? The other one here, which I would like to share, is, yeah, so this is Department of Physics and Astronomy in the University of New Mexico. The reason why I bring this up, well, they have a very nice set of project description. They have project and matters. So you can learn about the specific matters, you can learn about the projects that they do, and they specify the specific field that they do there as well. So those basically just give you some great ideas of what to look for. Well, I don't want to necessarily show my my apologies, my email, but those are just few examples that we can talk about. So if Brad can bring back the presentation, and I should stop share here, right? So yes, so I showed you a couple of examples here, and Brad actually went to the different slide. Can you go to previous slide, please, briefly? I just want to highlight two important things. We went through the first three here. There is a National Radio Astronomy Observatory, REU. It had a summer research program for students for a long time, even before the REU was around. And they work with Green Banks Observatory too nowadays. And they through the 6 decades of experience, they had about 1,000 students going through their program, 1,000 grads. That's absolutely amazing program. So look it up. Another one that I would highlight from this slide is this NSF RU program, which has a specific name that I really like a lot: Optics in the City of Light. So for this specific one, you spend the first week in the University of Michigan, and then you go to Paris. And in Paris, you get to do research with Nobel laureates. In the field of optics, right? And you spend time abroad. So this is absolutely amazing, and they have an early deadline. That's one of these unique unique RU programs with early deadline. Can we go to the next slide, please? Now, I want to, again, I will not go through clicking on those in the interest of time, but I'd like to highlight a few. So this slide shows the RU programs outside of physics and astronomy sciences. And all of those programs run not by physics or astronomy sciences directorate of NSF. You have here atmospheric geospace sciences, right? In particular, RU program is at National Weather Center. It's in the University of Oklahoma, and it's an amazing place. They are looking for physics majors, and we had 2 CSU students who went through this program in the last few years. It's absolutely amazing. Ocean sciences, another one. If you look it up, it is run from Monterey Bay Regional Ocean Science Institute there. There you get to study physics of oceans. And if you're interested, you get to do your research on a boat, right, in the Pacific Ocean. Now, material research. Well, there are lots, 70 plus sites that do with material research. One that comes to mind, which has been running forever, is in University of Akron. This would be polymer science and polymer engineering. And Brad went through something like that. Chemistry. Well, chemistry usually maybe not a good fit for physics majors, but this particular one, I know this quite well. It's very close to Cleveland, Kent State University Liquid Crystal Institute. This is the birthplace of liquid crystal displays. And there, all the research that they do, yeah, it's chemistry REU, but research that they do, there's all the optics and physics of liquid crystals. That's there would be no liquid crystals without physics contribution to those. Okay, engineering REU sites there, and then the bottom one is University of Maryland. This is computer information science and engineering. Those guys actually do some quantum computing, so it's a pretty good REU site too. So if we go to the next one. So the next one is this snapshot of SPS job site, which I took this morning. You should be able to go to you should be able to go to the SPS job site, and SPS job site lists a bunch of REUs. It offers this for use to list their programs. And you can see here an example of a Ohio State University program. By the way, this is SPS job site, Society of Physics Students. This site is run by Material Research division of the NSF. So it's not a physics REU program, and it's a very good REU program. And there are a bunch of them. And actually, since this morning, I believe there are a couple more sites that appeared on the site. So, it's being updated right now quite a bit. Can we go to the next slide, please? All right. And so, again, with the NSF REUs, this is the website that we started with. So this is an NSF website with a listing of all those different disciplines, and we checked how many you have in those different disciplines, which are, typically important to physicists. In addition to the NSF REUs, well, the National DOE labs, there are 17 of them, and all of them have internships for the summer. So that's something for you to check out as well if you're interested in an experience like that. Or there's a NIST SURF program, right? So I believe there are even 2 of them.
Yep.
So there's a link to that as well. If you're interested to work at NASA, they have now this one systemized site where you go to apply for different intern positions, including some internships, similar types of programs. And we have one here at the Glenn Research Center in Cleveland. And it's very similar, 10 weeks long, with the very similar types of settings there. But you have to go through this intern.nasa.gov. There are some opportunities through the US government. And the other important thing, well, university programs also support some research very often centralized, not just particular professors through his or her own grant, but like university-wide. And Cleveland State has one of those programs, so I understand that this might not be of interest to most of you, but you should look into your own university programs. Many universities nowadays have integrated research programs available.
And just to bounce off that, a lot of these programs are quite large. Like the NIST SURF program is hundreds of people. Like it's a big program, and the NASA program is very large. So there's lots of positions, and it goes across the agency, across the different labs. So lots of different opportunities within these different opportunities. And then maybe I could talk about the SPS internship real quick. Would that be okay, Kiril?
Yes.
Okay, so we actually have our own. SPS has its own internship program as well. And one of the great things is that there's amazing programs at NIST and NASA and national labs and through NSF programs. We do our own, but it's a little different, and it's different on purpose. So we have a program. It's about 16 to 18 students every summer. Our dates are the May 28th through August 6th. Ours is sort of fixed for the year. Ours is $6,500 for your stipend, and then additionally we pay for housing, and then additionally we pay for your travel to and from Washington D.C. But what makes our program different is that there are host sites all across Washington, D.C. There's some doing history of physics. There's some doing rheology. There's some doing science policy. There's some working on Capitol Hill. There's some working on federal science policy. There's some working at NIST, a good number working at NIST this summer. There's some working at Space Telescope. There's some working on education, science policy, public outreach. They're all doing different things, but they live together and work together. And so even though you might be doing NIST research this summer, you'll know exactly what it's like to do outreach with K through 12 students because you're living together, working together, and sharing those experiences. So applications are open now. Our application is due a little bit early. It's due January 15th. So if you would like to apply for that, please go to the SPS website, use the QR code in the corner and apply because it is an amazing program. And I think we can finish it up maybe with a little bit about careers in grad school, Kiril. Would that be okay?
Yeah, sure.
Gotcha. And by the way, this is a graphic of somebody took 800 unmanned bikes and let the bike sort of wobble and follow it. And that's sort of the path they make. So it's always fun to kind of throw these things in. So if you're looking for graduate programs, you're thinking about graduating, thinking about what's next, some REUs do allow, or some programs do allow you to apply the summer after you graduate. Some do not. Make sure you take a look for that. If you're looking for graduate schools, I recommend Grad School Shopper. It's a great resource. It's free for you. A lot of great data. You can download the data, do what you want with it, and make sure that you find the school that fits you as a person and your interests. If you're looking for astronomy programs, AAS has an amazing list of resources. Some of these schools appear in Grad School Shopper, some do not. So make sure you check out both of those resources. Additionally, we have a whole slew of resources on the SPS website that are free for everybody. It's advice on graduate school, graduate programs, how to connect with people, do informational interviews. So whether you're going to graduate school or you're looking for a job, we have resources that we want to help you and help you get that career started, that ideal job, that ideal REU. And so I just wanted to say thanks. Thanks for listening to us talk for so long. We're definitely here and open for questions. I see some questions in the chat. We'll open up for that. But just as a quick reminder, we just had an amazing meeting. We do a meeting every 3 years called the Physics Congress. We'll have our next one in 2025 in Denver, Colorado. So we're excited to be inviting you all to join us for that in Denver in 2025. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to stop sharing screen. We're going to open it up for questions. And I will find the question window. So if you didn't write a question and you have one, go ahead and write it in the chat. So the first one I'll ask, and maybe Kiril, you can kind of answer. What makes a strong letter of recommendation?
All right. Well, I think we talked about this quite a bit. And I think to summarize, the strong letter of recommendation should show your interest in this particular program that you're applying for should address this question, why you're good for the program or why the program is good for you. And also should show who you are and what your achievements are, and not just in terms of GPA and classes that you took, but also in terms of your overall experience, in terms of your overall interests. Do you have strong interest in particular subject, and what specific interests are? How do they fit the program again?
And I would just say a strong letter of recommendation just doesn't say, oh, this person is a great student, but it gives specific examples. So if you worked with a person and you did a project for them and that person can talk about that project, that makes a great letter. Or if you really know somebody and you've interacted with them both inside the classroom and outside the classroom, that makes for a good letter. So the more varied the interaction you've had with somebody, the more opportunity there is for that person to write a good letter. And pro tip, always give your resume or CV and anything you want that person to mention, give that information to the letter recommender, because it's super helpful. So that way they can write about all the awesome stuff that you did that maybe has slipped their mind or they didn't even know about. Okay. Next question is, will the recording be sent to attendees? Yes, we will have this recording available on YouTube and we'll be able to send it out afterwards, probably in a couple days. And then we're going to do a refresh of this in January. Since many of the applications are due in January, it might be fresh on the mind to watch us talk about it while you're literally frantically typing to hit the deadline the next day or something like that. I don't advise that, but it will be available. We'll do this again. Did we have any other questions from the audience? Last call. Okay, it looks not. I just wanted to say thank you, Kiril, for your time. I really appreciate it. And thank you for everybody that came to the webinar today. Feel free to share this link. We'll send it out to everybody. And if you think of different questions as you're writing your application, we'll see you again in January. Thanks a lot, everybody.
Thank you, Brad.
Thank you.